I remember having a little talk to the Lord about I want to commit my life to young people.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
helping better shape their life and give them a chance in life. And it was just like a moment for me. I didn't know what it would be. I didn't
Yeah.
know it'd be like a full time vocation or
Sure.
anything like that. But that was a changing moment for me.
You eventually got fanned into a flame, you
Yeah.
know, for what you're doing today. You know, that's why.
Yeah, I'm certain of that. That I didn't know what it would be or
Yeah.
how it would happen, but I would dedicate a good portion of my life to something around young people going forward.
From the IT company, it's Made Right Here, the stories of East Tennessee founders, creators, and builders. From the idea behind it to the impact it had on the community, their employees, and their personal lives, we're taking you behind the scenes of the movements they built. Hey, it's Paul Sponsi with the IT company. Welcome again to Made Right Here. Today's episode is part 1 of 2 with Steve Diggs from the Emerald Youth Foundation. You're going to learn today just about Steve's story, about the history of how he got to Emerald Youth, the craziness of like how God was working to put all this together, just what feels like coincidence but is really something completely different. So Steve's story, everybody has a story. Steve's story includes tragedy and hurt. It includes family life and being shaped in a certain way. And includes a heart for helping hurting, especially youth. And you'll see how sports really made a big impact and was woven in. And really what became and what eventually built into what is one of the most well-known organizations in our city, Emerald Youth Foundation. So have a listen.
I'm Knoxville bred, born, raised right here.
Okay.
And started out in the Powell area, and then it went to the Strawberry Plains, Carter area from like elementary, 4th grade through 8th grade. And then I graduated from Carnes High School. My father was a small church pastor, small United Methodist church pastor, and they back then it's changed a lot now. It'd be like every 5 years, so you would move, and so that was my trajectory. Of moving around some, but it wasn't terribly bad. It was always sad at the moment we made those transitions, but each place got a little better. So
Powell, Strawberry Plains, Carnes.
Yeah, Powell, Carter, Carnes. That was it. So
wow.
I made my loop all around the county pretty much, and now I live right in the heart of the city. So I didn't know which way to go.
So your dad was a pastor.
Yeah, small church. We always rural,
Is that a
church.
design in the United Methodist? Is it like this guy is assigned to do large churches and he's going to travel city to city, and this person is small, or is it just, how does that
Some
work?
of that gets in design, but a lot of choice, a pathway in which you see your giftedness. And my dad was, I think he realized that his gifting was more with the smaller out in the rural church. He ended at a church in the Inskip community, but he was only able to be there a couple of years before he was diagnosed with cancer and died. So he really enjoyed it. He only had 2 years really in the city. That was new for him, but it was working out pretty well. But it was a short stint. But I was already out, not with him at the time when he made that move.
Yeah, he passed away post high school for you?
Yes, he did. It was in 2001. Matter of fact, last week was the 20th anniversary.
Oh, hey, I'm curious. Totally never been a part of the show before, but I think about it, and I should have asked about it before. How, you're a pretty young man, right? So that's 20 years ago. So you're in your 30s or something, late 20s
when he passed. Yeah, it was. I was in mid 30s.
Mid 30s.
Yeah, he was only 67.
Oh wow.
Yeah, multiple myeloma. Yeah.
Wow. I tell people, I just want to curious if this resonates with you. My dad passed away when I was 37.
Yeah, about the same age.
12 years ago for me.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine's father passed away, and I told him, I said, hey, I just want you to know, I miss my dad more today than I ever did in those first few years.
Yeah.
It's like it was every successive year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's your experience or not, or.
Yeah, I think you're doing some video too with podcasts. They're not supposed to be able to see me get teary-eyed. So that's not fair. Yeah,
That's true. I am too. Thinking about it. Yeah.
I see that, and
Yeah.
so I think there's your answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a tender
Yeah.
moment. I don't know. There's something about, you become a man when your father dies. You're like, wow, I really am supposed to be the man now.
Yeah.
And whoever really wants that? I mean, it always, I would think, feel a little better when you're walking under someone's authority, and even when you're out of the house, you're on your own, and your dad's still alive, your parents still alive, you still feel a little bit like I'm walking under their authority or living under their authority in a good way, in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Just that you're not alone.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think about I don't know if this is you, but and not to make us more emotional, but I sometimes just want to call him, ask him a question, about something. And that's what I probably miss the most is just I would just wish, especially when you have kids and grandkids, all those things. So.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know if it's any different for the son and the father, how that plays out, but I don't know if you ever get to fully grieve it. You still feel like you got to jump up and take off on your own more, and you spend the rest of your life going through that process.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
Now, do you have siblings?
There's 4 of us.
So and where do you fall in the order?
I'm number 3.
Number 3, okay.
And then I have a younger brother that's 10. There's 4 years difference between my oldest sister, my next sister, and me, and then 10 years before my younger brother's born. So we tell him he's a little bit like the only child, and so and we really do in birth order see me more as like the baby of the family, but he's the only child.
Yeah. So you were the youngest. That's interesting. Of the baby
3,
of the first 3.
Yeah, of the 3, and 2 older sisters. So
are they still here in Knoxville?
They are.
Yeah.
All of us, all 4 are here in Knoxville, and that really thought about this as much about how important that is now and how good that is that we've got that opportunity to be together. And got a mom who's still alive. She'll be 87 this December, and she's been very active. And pre-COVID, she was bowling 2 or 3 times per week.
That's awesome.
She's just really going. She's sort of known by many as a hot tamale lady, and taking care of us. So she's really big on the Sunday gatherings and dinners. We're not all there every week, but every Sunday there is a standing appointment for whoever can get there
to be at our house.
Yeah, and you can miss maybe twice a month, and that's about it.
And everybody, all 4 of you will be there at some point, and kids, grandkids, the whole bit.
It used to be a lot more. We got a lot of the grandkids have moved away, or some living in Georgia in different parts. So when Thanksgiving, Christmas, those events, we got more than a house full. So they're not very quiet. It is sweet, but you got to go home and rest afterwards.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like just by talking a little bit about your dad, he's a big influence.
Yeah, he was. My mom, family. That's I'm real blessed to have that in my life.
How do you feel? I can point to specific things the way that my dad influenced me, and the way I am who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reflect the way that they raised you and the way that you feel like you're wired as a result of that?
Yeah, I think there's some work hard in all of that. Nothing's given to you, in some of that. But then 2, there's probably the one word I think of is servanthood. Even take my pastor, or my dad as a pastor. It wasn't always bad in the pulpit, but teaching, preaching wouldn't have been his top gift. His top gift was in the pastoral care of loving on people and then helping them. It would be, he was, out in a rural area, things are different at times. Back then, I know things have changed, but if a member of the church's car was broken down, tore up, he'd go over and fix their car, or, especially like elderly. If their TV wasn't working, fix their TV and just care for them that way. And he really pushed on, son, you got to be willing to get your hands dirty. Don't separate yourself from the people too much. So I think that comes out in with both of them and how they share. My mom's very very quiet, when it gets out to the public, but the most vocal things she do in the church is the traditional. She played the piano and she would sing. And we actually, the siblings, we actually used, when the three of us, before my brother came on, we used to all sing together with my mom. So
Traveling
we had the dad was a pastor, we were the singing family,
awesome.
that kind of going on.
Like
So
the Gaithers of Knoxville.
yeah, well, I brought us way down, let me assure you. And I didn't sing, I yelled, especially when I was a kid. I didn't
That's
yell
awesome.
up there, but those were fun times.
Yeah.
I mean, things were simpler. Probably even in the church, it was a little more simple, and you just could grow up and be yourself a lot. And so I think that's really a lot. I have reflected some on that of trying to be available and accessible to help people. I know it's still at the heart of what I need to be and do today. And if I can't do that anymore, then it's time to do something else.
Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of folks who grew up with fathers as pastors, that can sometimes be a challenge. It sounds like it was not that way for you. Like, I think the thing, I've had other people on here, it's like a microscope, a fishbowl. You're the pastor's kid. Everybody's watching you. You're expected to be a certain way, act a certain way. Did you ever feel that way growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. We knew there were a lot of eyes on you, and we lived in the parsonage a lot. And the parsonage is right next to the church. And, there's a lot to that. My mom, I can remember as a kid, with parsonage, boxes she never unpacked because she assumed we'd be moving again. It was just that. It wasn't like terrible, but it's not the easiest when you're in the church, and I think it's that way even still for people today. You expect everyone to be on their best behavior. And then even for me as a kid, I might stumble being in a small church, hearing someone talk negatively about my dad, and I'm the kid hearing that, and I've got to keep my mouth closed because it's not my place, and you want to go to war and fight them, right? Because it's your family. So, especially small church, you expect everybody to be the best behavior, whether it's the preacher's kid or the adults, and it is a place, a family where you get to see each other just as we really are, and that really is a positive thing, but it can be hurtful and painful too.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'd say it was good for me. Again, healthy. There's a lot of healthy places where I still was able to find a relationship with the Lord spiritually growing up, and it wasn't just acting out the church. Still trying to grow through all that, today. But then I had some really good friends that carried over into my high school that it allowed me to walk down a much better path. No way was I a saint, but I'm not this preacher's kid that was just totally out in rebellion. Not always living out the faith, but I wasn't in total rebellion. So it didn't affect me that way, but I did have to really move to a point in my faith experience where it was something I believed in, that I possessed, and it was relational for me, and it wasn't the mechanics of I'm supposed to live this way or act this way.
I've heard it messaged before. It's the from pastors' kids. It's the transition, and I think of anybody that maybe grew up in a family of faith. It's the transition from your parents' religion to your own spiritual journey. There's some point where you transition from I did this because I'm part of a family that goes to church and is faithful, and now I'm transitioning to why do I believe what I believe, and why do I want to serve, all that stuff out. So
you do have to discover that. I actually, a few years ago, there's someone that was doing a study on kids from parsonages and pastoral families, and wanted to interview and go be a part of the study. I said, no, I don't want to find out. I wouldn't allow it. I said, I'm not interested. I'm this stage of my life, and I made it. I'm good.
That's good. What would you, if I asked this question, what pops in your mind? What are your best memories of growing up?
It would a lot of be around ball, but I do quickly always think about as a kid of being out in that backyard with my Tonka trucks. You know, so
big yellow metal ones back in the
oh
day.
yeah, see, you can't find them anymore, right? You know, they used to
they're
show
all
the
plastic
commercials
little
where
beans.
the elephant would step on them and they
Yeah.
wouldn't crush,
Yeah,
you know. And
yeah.
you got younger listeners, they have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was a big deal. And it actually, when I came into the city and started the work I'm in now, I remember driving around the community and recognizing children out playing, and none of them had the trucks, you know, and that was a real eye opener for me. I was like, realized the difference. But for me, I enjoyed being out in that backyard, digging up the dirt and playing out in the woods, and had horses, you know, and growing up. But the playing ball, you know, I think whether you're a ball or music or whatever extracurricular, I think that pops up to be the memories of where it was so pure, like the game was so pure and just fun, and you loved the smell of your, you know, new glove, your baseball glove, or even when you boiled that new mouthpiece and you had to. They don't even boil them anymore, but did you experience that? You know, stick it in your mouth at hot and suck it, you know, to fit your teeth. I mean, it was just sweet, you know, good times, and life simple, and just enjoyed yourself. The game's a lot different. All sports are a lot more competitive today. And,
back in that time, it was for me. I don't know if it's for you. I mean, you know, if you played baseball, you played like a 12 or 16 game schedule. You know, in the early summer. And that was it. It was over. You know, you played like 2 nights a week for 5 or 6 weeks, and you're done.
Now you gotta go get a loan.
All-star game. Yeah, now.
You gotta get a loan from the bank so you can play baseball.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's interesting how you say that too. I don't know if this is that way for you. Baseball was my sport, but I still have this sensory. Like if I hold a baseball glove, like the smell of that leather, you know, or if I go to a game, I hear the crack of a bat, or the way I can smell the grass on a baseball field. It's just something just floods back.
Absolutely. As we talked about it, I was getting the smells. I get the sensory part, and you know, and I can tell it's football season when it's at its richest, when you smell the outdoors a certain way. For That's sure. Awesome. I get that.
That's awesome. Did you have any coaches in that time frame that now you look back and say, man, they had a, you know, almost, I'll say outsized, but they really impacted me.
Yeah.
You know, there was something about what he said or the way he did it or the way he coached, or anything in particular?
You know, I have thought about that before. I think one of those deals for me too, it'd be hard for me growing up to pinpoint the exact coach that just stood out. I was always pretty fortunate to be around a group of coaches. A lot of times it were dads that just really cared about the players and enjoyed it. But there are coaches, you know, along the way that they'd say the certain thing that definitely encouraged you more, and it mattered what they said to you in high school. I think about it, Carnes I was really close to Rick Cathy, Coach Cathy there for years, and as a freshman, you know, he just took us all under his wings, you know, and just sort of shepherded us a while, you know, and helping us through the transition. But I played small ball, you know, in college at Maryville College football, and I have definitely, I know that the defensive coordinator, there's things about what he was teaching and training and saying to us that his voice I still hear today. If I'm 5 minutes late, if I'm not 5 minutes early, I hear his voice and uses some choice words that are, you know, I can't say out loud on the podcast, but he was just pretty special, and I think it influenced probably how I operate today.
Interesting.
He had a level of intensity and drivenness and expectation of that probably helped move me forward some, and trying to live that out more.
Where is he now? Do you know?
He actually is coaching high school in Georgia, I believe. Georgia.
Okay. It's interesting, those things. I think about what you just said. Like I know I had this coach, Barry Rose. I'll never forget it. Just rode my tail all the time. This is in 7th grade, and I remember I threw my glove down, and I was like, "What is the deal? Why are you always on me?"
Yeah.
He said, "You know, Paul, because you could be better.
Yeah.
If I didn't ride you, it would mean I didn't think you could be better." So I was like, "Oh, interesting." You know. So I think those things, like, that's why I'm always curious about it, because I think about those in my life, and I think, man, there's these little things that
Mhm.
just have shaped me, you know, and that's an interesting one about your defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and he was New Jersey. Culturally, we were as night and day different. And,
Yeah.
But I respected him
Huh.
completely. And then actually, my head coach at the college, he just came my junior and senior year, and so got to know him fairly well. But he actually today serves on our Emerald Youth Sports Committee where I
Really?
work, and my old college coach,
Who is it?
Larry Stevens.
Larry
He used to be
Stevens,
Powell High School coach and
Yeah.
county commissioner for many years,
Yeah.
but just a jewel of a man. And
Huh.
it's pretty neat now because he brings such a servant spirit to me.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's
I'm
cool.
like, you're still my coach. You know, I
Yeah.
got to do what you say, and he's there to serve us. You know, and it's a interesting dynamic. But I love him for that. The one thing I did learn, and too, pretty quick, I didn't get it turned around, but what my college defensive coordinator had taught me and how he'd influenced me. It didn't work as well with my youth sports coaching.
Not the same motivation.
Yeah, not the same. Couldn't do the same.
Didn't quite be as intense. All right, so did you go to Carnes High School?
I did.
Did you graduate from Carnes High School?
They said I did. I
Did
got a
you really?
certificate.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a
didn't know that
diploma.
you- I didn't-
Yeah.
For some reason, I mean, I know your kids
Yeah.
went to Fulton. For some reason,
A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
You know, we moved into that Fulton neighborhood. My wife did early in the ministry, but I'm a Carnes graduate.
Oh, really?
So, yep.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I was there back in the '80s, and
Yeah. Did you, when you were growing up, especially as you got to be a young adult, did you work at all? Were there anything did your parents make you work in the summers or anything? Or?
yeah.
You did? Yeah.
I mean, I again, being out where we lived. I mean, middle school, I was hauling hay and cutting my own yards.
Really?
Mowing business, and, and
Were
I
you-
could be on the tractor working in tobacco fields or dehorning.
Was this your
Yeah,
family,
yeah.
or was this just you working
Now,
for friends, family?
people around the neighborhood,
Huh.
the area, or the church that had farms,
Yeah.
and excuse me. So, we had 3 horses, and we didn't have our own land. We
Mhm.
always kept
Kept
them
them
somewhere,
somewhere, yeah.
and that led to work. So.
Mhm.
Then I was probably in high school. I got in working some construction company work in high school in the
Mm.
summers, and then there's our man at one of the churches, our youth director. He worked for Service Master, did commercial
Mm.
cleaning work, and I've been in a lot of offices across town cleaning the carpets and the
Mm.
windows and
Interesting.
after hours at night.
Yeah.
Huh. And so World's Fair downtown, I'd go in after midnight and we'd shampoo carpets in the
Wow.
Sunsphere and take naps. It took forever for the elevators to get up at night for service stays down, so I'd wake up soaking wet because I ended up falling asleep on the wet carpet trying to get an elevator. So, but all that, I mean, that was healthy for me.
Yeah.
And we used to think about too for work, I really hate for my own children, they got to be around some horses a little bit, but because my sister had horses, but I wish that they would have had that experience. They're, one's out of college and in grad school, one's in college now, but having horses, I think, is something that to teach us so much responsibility.
Mhm.
They're high maintenance,
Yeah.
and
Huh.
if you're not riding them or caring for them, they get a little wild on you or agitated.
Yeah.
So, cold winter, we didn't have a pond or a creek usually where they were, so the water would freeze up, and you had to go bust it up and get them some water. I mean, that
Hmm.
was not always pleasant at the
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
if I look back to what was some of the work experience or responsibility that translated to now, it was
Yeah.
having that responsibility because I just had to learn a lot on my own.
Hey, going back to your dad, thinking as you mentioned that, so did he come from a rural background?
He did.
He did.
It was Hardin Valley back before Hardin Valley, Tennessee
Yeah.
was developed.
Okay.
It was,
Which was Carnes actually, because they
Yeah.
went, Hardin Valley went to Carnes
Yeah,
back in those days.
that's right.
Yeah.
He that's where he went to high school was Carnes, and he didn't finish high school, but later in life he ended up getting his undergrad degree at University of Tennessee, and then
Wow.
a seminary degree between Duke and Emory. So
Wow.
he was in his 30s when he went back to college.
That's
so
impressive.
yeah,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Huh. So, and your mom, same rural background?
she did. She Powell High School,
Okay.
not never went to college, but that's where she grew up there.
So, are most of your roots kind of East Tennessee, as far as you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife's from Greenback, so we've kept it all in this
All-
East Tennessee
all East
area.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything in your kind of growing up, kind of before college? Is there anything that really difficult that shaped you? Is there anything that you look back on and like, man, that was a tough time. It was a tough season.
It was really a tough event for me.
Okay.
You know, and I'd easily can point to this because I have no question about it led to the kind of work I'm in today. Was when I was a senior in high school, in the summer before my senior year, we had a player on our team, and it's always like referred to him as number 57, who's questionable if he should stay on the team. Coaches came to me and two other captains of the team and said, we got to make a decision, keep him or let him go. And we're like, we think you ought to keep him. We want him to have another chance. He's younger. And long story short, we went to football camp, and we actually had a nights out devotional every night. And he came, I remember one night, it's like, my life's got to change. I want it to change. And we had a good prayer time with him and believed that change did happen. And a month later, or 6 weeks later, he was killed tragically in a car wreck. And principal and folks, I still have articles where they talked about that he was a young man who had made a big change in his life. They didn't know why, but I knew why.
Yeah.
I knew his faith had changed, and I was a pallbearer. I was 17 years old, and I was a pallbearer for a 16-year-old, and going to a gravesite. And I remember having a little talk to the Lord about, I want to commit my life to young people.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
helping better shape their life and give them a chance in life. And it was just like a moment for me. I didn't know what it would be. I didn't know it'd be like a full-time vocation or anything like that. But that was a changing moment for me to have that deep of experience with a teammate who died tragically, and I'd had the encounter with, and even had that place with him. And he didn't know it about where we make a decision to keep him as a part of the team, but then he changes, and you know, so there was just something in all of that for me, Paul. But I still, you know, you talk about, we get a little tender thing about your dad. I can go back to that moment. I forgot a lot about my childhood, but that moment, that walking, you know, with my hand on the side of a casket, I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Of a 16-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Almost like a little, maybe that's the little spark, you know, that you eventually got fanned into a flame, you know, for what you're doing today, you know. That's wild.
Yeah, I'm certain of that, that I didn't know what it would be or how it would happen, but I would dedicate a good portion of my life to something around young people going forward.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So, I know you went to college. You already alluded to it. You went to Maryville College. Why Maryville College?
Well, I've mentioned to you about two things: horses and playing ball.
Okay.
You know, I knew Maryville was. I wanted to stay close to the area so I could keep the responsibility going for my horses. I did that. That was mine. At that point, time I was in college, they were all three mine.
Really?
So it was my role. My father helped out some on it, but he didn't say, you go to college, I've got this thing. That didn't happen.
So you loved horses. This wasn't just something you were doing.
Yeah, and I was a trail riding horse guy.
Really?
So, I mean, it wasn't like, I was no horse shows.
Yeah, you weren't
I didn't have
roping and, you know.
this love to
barrel
go
racing
ride
stuff.
those horses, you know, and go out on the trail. You know, it was just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this had become part of my life, but you know, not a true cowboy or anything like that. And today, if you know, I used to ride on some of the, you know, trying to break them, but I wouldn't go near to a horse that was not broke today. You're not going. That won't happen. Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, and that, my other the other thing though for me is I was almost 5'9" when I went to college, and as much as I wanted to run through the tee, that wasn't going to happen. But I loved the game. I really just loved the camaraderie of being on a team and loved football, and it was just more than winning for me. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to keep doing it. I just did not want to give it up. And Maryville gave me that option. And at the time, I knew very little about Maryville College. I mean, even being at Carnes, believe it or not, you know, back in the 80s, you know, that far back from me, you just, you know, when you lived where I lived in that area, we didn't get out very much. You know, West Town Mall was sort of our
Was a big
thing.
deal.
As far as we went, a little bit down to Cedar Bluff, but you just lived that world. You knew UT, and you knew a little Carson Newman more because they won national championships. But I barely knew Maryville College, but that's where I met my wife. My son graduated from there. My daughter's a freshman, and I'm on the board at Maryville College. So I know about it now, and it has cost me a lot of money because D3 school is they don't give a scholarship for time to play. You really got to play because you want to play.
Huh? What'd you play?
I was a defensive end.
Defensive end. So you met your wife there.
I did.
Yeah, and how did you meet her? What was the
Is this to go back? That's the only time in my life I ever shaved my head. It was before my junior year. All the football teams shaved their heads. You know that we're going to be fired up, ready to go. We lost. You know, we lost so many games as a college. I don't know why. It
wasn't a very good team.
No, not at all. I mean, we won in 9 one year.
Oh,
you
wow.
know, homecoming game, I think we got beat 77-20 something my senior year. Yeah, but I had a good time. Let me say that. But I'd shake my head. I go in the library at the school, and I saw who is now my wife. You know, as a freshman. You know, and I was a junior. You know, all these juniors up there, we had our eyes open, and I saw her like, man, I think I'd like to talk to her, and I just went over to her and. I told her who I was, and I pulled out a picture and said, "Here's what I look like with hair." Because of my face, my big round face, Paul. I couldn't pull off what you pull off.
Oh, whatever. That's so funny.
It didn't work, so we didn't start
she was
dating
like, she was
anything.
like
That's
that picture did it.
Yeah,
That's how you look all the way to your hair.
Well, it took me a while to really win her, but that was my first intro to her. But we
awesome.
just became friends, really, and then finally, about 3/4 through her freshman year, we connected, started dating, and then we married. After I graduated, she was now a rising junior when I graduated, and I was on my way to seminary. That was what was going to happen for me. And she still had, of course, 2 more years to go in Maryville College. I didn't want to leave her because I was going to Kentucky was my plan. So I decided to wait to go to seminary, and we ended up getting married her junior year in college and been together since.
Wow.
So
what's your wife's name?
Sabrina.
Yeah. And she's from Greenback.
She's Greenback.
Yeah. Okay. And she ended up finishing at Maryville?
Yes.
Yeah.
English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to seminary?
Nope. That's part of that's where, you know, I stumbled into the ministry I'm in now.
So you graduate, she's got 2 years, you're gonna go to seminary, you don't. What'd you do?
Well, when I came out of college and knew that I was gonna wait, I found I was trying to find just some work to make it through. I wasn't married yet, but I thought this could happen sooner. But I needed to work for a year and a half. I thought just somewhere until I went on to seminary and we were together. So I went into an office of actually my father in a Methodist church in the area district. They'd have a district superintendent. So it was my father's boss even at the time. And I went in his office and said, hey, you know what my plans are, but I need a year or so where I just want to try to work at a church, work with young people before I go on to school. Back then too, I really knew I wanted to be in some, in a form of ministry. I knew too that I wanted to have the influence on young people. That hadn't left. But even, over 3 decades ago in Knoxville, if you were thinking about a ministry vocation, there weren't many options other than you go to seminary, you be a pastor. So I was just doing what I thought was the only way.
Makes
Now
sense.
today, there's so many different ministries, vocations you can choose here. And inside of those organizations, like a CARM or even an Emerald, there's all kinds of marketplace skills you can bring to that work. And you find now it's a lot like just any kind of business. You got to have accounting, you got to have your HR, you got to have your fundraising or sales, you got to have and if you're like, I want to be in that organization, but this is marketplace skill or IT, technology, there's room for that now. But I came out of college and didn't see anything else. I had no exposure to any other option than either go to seminary, then you'll be a youth pastor for a while, and then you climb a ladder and become the pastor.
Where are you going to go? Where you're playing at Methodist?
Yeah,
same route.
Asbury. Asbury was a little bit more in the I don't know how to, more maybe evangelical a lot, but it would probably cross over a little bit more like Baptist, Methodist. Not a lot of difference, and back then it didn't seem to be. So when I came, anyway, I went to the superintendent and I said, "There's, my plans." And I said, if you hear of any churches looking for someone, let me know. And I left his office, and the story goes, he said, the pastor of Emerald Avenue United Methodist Church at the time, which was located in the Fulton neighborhood, the old St. Mary's community. That pastor walked into the district superintendent's office and said, if you hear of someone that want to come and work for a church, part-time, we're looking for somebody to help us start reaching back out to children in our community. We've not done that well. The church is down to like 110 people, but we have a reason to be in this neighborhood, and we see children with all this need. Most of our people moved out, driving back in, but here's these children with need and opportunity for them. So that superintendent put the two of us together. That was like a Monday, and on Sunday I met with people in the church.
Oh, was that fast?
And then I was working the next day. I never but times changed. The superintendent knew me, so they had that. I never completed a job application or had a resume, and I was working part-time. Then I picked up a part-time job with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and so my role was I was part-time with the church, trying to help a church reconnect with a changing city neighborhood. With FCA, I was working in rural schools across the region, up in in Union County, Tellico Plains, Almaron County, all those areas. But even at that time, children and young people in the community I was reaching in the city or starting to get connected to, and I'd go out to the rural areas. In that neighborhood time, it was the responses or lives seem to be very similar. And I think Appalachia that's here, I think that's still quite a bit true today. But that's how I got connected, and Emerald Avenue Church is the founding church of what is now Emerald Youth Foundation, because the outreach that we had at Emerald Avenue Church in just really a couple of years, just way out, it outgrew the church significantly, and we had to expand it to have a broader ownership than just the one church and one neighborhood.
Wow. So you, like, literally in 5 days, he didn't walk in the same day you walked out, did he?
Oh, he just within 30 minutes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You could call that coincidence, or you might call that God. You have to decide where you are on the spectrum. I think you know what I call it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Hey, that was part 1 of our 2-part series with Steve Diggs from Emerald Youth Foundation. I hope you'll watch the video when it drops next week, and I hope you'll tune in 2 weeks when the second episode drops, and you'll start to hear some cool stuff about how Emerald got ramped up and became what it is today. So thanks for listening.